there is a strange pattern hidden inside almost every serious attempt to understand reality. Follow any of them far enough: philosophy, mathematics, mysticism, physics, and they all arrive at the same place. A locked door. And the door does not open with an answer. It opens with a contradiction. The mathematician Kurt Gödel proved that any system of logic complex enough to be useful contains truths it cannot prove. The system, to be complete, must reach beyond itself. Physics tells you that light is a wave and a particle, not sometimes one and sometimes the other, but both, fully, at once. And every mystical tradition that has ever taken the question seriously says the same thing in 1,000 different voices. That ultimate reality cannot be captured by the mind that is trying to capture it. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a feature of reality. The deepest truths do not resolve. They hold two opposite things together and refuse to let you choose. This is paradox. And it might be the closest thing we have to the fingerprint of the infinite. For most of its history, Western thought treated paradox as an enemy. Aristotle gave us the law of non-contradiction. A thing cannot be both true and false in the same sense at the same time. And this single rule became the foundation of logic, science, and almost everything the modern mind trusts. It was extraordinarily powerful. It built the bridges, the engines, the computers, the entire architecture of the rational world. But it came with a hidden cost. A mind trained to eliminate contradiction will treat every paradox as a problem to be solved, an error to be corrected, a bug in the system. And so, when the West collided with the great paradoxes, at the edge of mathematics, at the bottom of physics, at the limit of self-knowledge, it experienced them as crises. But there were a few thinkers, even in the West, who suspected the contradiction was not an error. Søren Kierkegaard stood at the center of Christianity and found at its heart an absolute paradox. An eternal, infinite God becoming a finite, mortal man. Reason cannot hold that. And Kierkegaard's radical claim was that you are not supposed to resolve it. The paradox is the precise point where reason exhausts itself, and something else has to begin. He called the leap across that gap faith, but the structure he described is universal. The paradox is not the obstacle on the path. The paradox is the doorway. While the West was building walls against contradiction, the East was building doorways out of it. In Taoism, the very first lines of the Tao Te Ching are a paradox. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The book opens by telling you that the book cannot tell you what it is about. This is not a riddle to be clever about. It is a warning and an invitation. Whatever you can put into words is already not the thing itself. And then there is Zen. Zen took paradox and sharpened it into a tool, the koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What was your face before your parents were born? These are not puzzles with hidden answers. They are devices engineered to break something. The rational mind receives a koan and immediately tries to solve it. It searches, it analyzes, it fails. It searches harder, it fails harder. And at the moment of total exhaustion, when the thinking mind finally admits it cannot think its way through, something else opens. A gap, a silence, a direct seeing that does not pass through thought at all. The koan was never meant to be answered. It was meant to be the stone that breaks the surface of the thinking mind, so that what lies beneath can be seen. So why does paradox do this? Why does a contradiction held long enough produce not frustration, but silence, and sometimes something that feels like revelation? Here is one way to see it. The thinking mind works by division. It cuts the world into pairs, self and other, subject and object, true and false, this and that. Every thought you have ever had depends on a boundary, a line between one thing and its opposite. That is what thinking is, the drawing of lines. But the deepest traditions all point to the same suspicion. That reality underneath is not divided. That the lines are useful, but not ultimately real. And a true paradox is a place where the lines collapse. Wave and particle, form and emptiness, the God who is both transcendent and immanent, the self that is both completely individual and completely one with everything. When the mind grips a paradox like this, it tries to split it, and it cannot. The two sides will not separate, and in the failure of that split, for just a moment, the dividing mechanism itself stops. This is what the Advaita teacher means by a doorway from the finite to the infinite. The paradox does not give the mind a better thought. It momentarily ends thought. And in that gap, what is left is not confusion. It is the thing that was always underneath the thinking. Awareness itself, with no object, vast, silent, and undivided. So what do we do with this? Not as a clever idea, but as a way of meeting your own life. The first thing is a reversal. Stop treating the contradictions you encounter as failures of understanding. When you find a place where two true things refuse to agree, in a teaching, in another person, in yourself, you may have found not an error, but an edge. The place where the map ends and the territory begins. You are a paradox after all. You are a temporary arrangement of atoms that will not last a century, and you contain the capacity to contemplate eternity. You are utterly insignificant against the scale of the cosmos, and the entire cosmos, as far as you will ever know it, exists inside your awareness. Both are completely true. Neither cancels the other. And you do not have to resolve that. You only have to stand in it, fully, without flinching, and let it do what paradox does. Let it quiet the part of you that needs everything to make sense. The mystics across every tradition kept arriving at the same wordless place by walking straight into the contradiction instead of around it. And one of them asked to give a name to that which cannot be named. God, consciousness, emptiness, the absolute, might simply have said, "Thy name is paradox." This is the Outlier protocol. If this found you at the right time, you know what to do.